I was standing in my own kitchen at 2 in the morning, my feet screaming in pain, when I heard my husband Harold call me his personal slave to another woman. Let me back up, because you need to understand how I got to that moment. My name is Evelyn Richardson, and I'm 67 years old. That night, I'd just finished my 4th shift of the day. 4th. I started at 6 a.m. cleaning offices downtown, then worked the hospital cafeteria from 11 to 3, answered calls at a customer service center from 4 to 8, and finished by waiting tables at Rosie's Diner until 1 in the morning. My hands were cracked and bleeding from all the cleaning chemicals. My back felt like someone had taken a hammer to my spine. But I came home and headed straight for the kitchen anyway, because I'd promised Harold I'd make him a plate before I went to bed. The man said he couldn't sleep on an empty stomach. I was pulling out the leftovers from Sunday dinner, baked chicken, collard greens, mac and cheese, when I heard his voice coming from the bedroom. Our bedroom door was cracked open, and he was talking loud, the way he does when he's excited about something. "Man, I'm telling you, I got it made," Harold said, and he was laughing. That deep, rumbling laugh that used to make my heart flutter 43 years ago when we first met at Greater Faith Baptist Church. "She's working 4 jobs, brother. 4. And every dime goes straight to paying off my debts." I froze with the chicken container in my hand. Nah, she don't even question it," Harold continued. "I told her we had to sacrifice together, that we were a team. All that marriage stuff. And she bought every word. She out there working herself half to death while I'm living good. Real good, if you know what I mean." The container slipped from my fingers and hit the counter with a soft thud, but he didn't hear it. He just kept talking. "That's right, baby. 4 jobs. Hospital, call center, cleaning, and waitressing. She barely sleeps 3 hours a night. And get this, she thinks it's all going to pay off the gambling debts. But really? Half that money's been going to you, sweetheart. And the other half? That's my walking around money. I'm eating steak while she's eating ramen noodles." My heart stopped beating. I swear it did. I couldn't breathe. "Personal slave is what she is," Harold said, and now he was cackling like it was the funniest joke in the world. "Been married 43 years, and the woman still don't know I've been playing her. And the best part? She's so tired all the time she don't even notice when I'm gone all weekend. Thinks I'm at my brother's house. Meanwhile, me and you living it up at that hotel in Clayton." I stood there in my kitchen, our kitchen, the one I'd scrubbed clean every Sunday for 4 decades, and something inside me just broke. Not broke like I was falling apart. Broke like a chain snapping, like a door opening, like a woman waking up from a 43-year-long nightmare. Before we continue, please comment below, as I'd love to hear your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel to help us hit that big 1,000 subscriber milestone. Let me tell you how I got here, working 4 jobs at 67 years old, believing every lie that came out of my husband's mouth. It started 8 months ago. Harold came to me with tears in his eyes, looking more scared than I'd ever seen him. We were sitting on the couch after church, still in our Sunday clothes, and he took my hands in his. "Evie," he said, using the nickname he hadn't called me in years. "Baby, I need to tell you something, and I need you not to hate me." I felt my stomach drop. After 43 years of marriage, you know when your husband's about to confess something big. I thought maybe he'd lost his job, or maybe he was sick. Lord knows, at our age, sickness is always lurking around the corner. "I made some mistakes," Harold said, and those tears started rolling down his brown cheeks. Real tears, or at least I thought they were real. "Bad mistakes with money. I got caught up in some gambling, trying to make extra cash for us to retire on. But it went wrong, baby. It went real wrong." "How wrong?" I asked, and my voice was shaking. $85,000 wrong," he whispered. I actually gasped. $85,000? We didn't have that kind of money. We'd been living paycheck to paycheck our whole marriage. I'd worked as a secretary for 30 years before I retired at 65, and Harold had driven trucks until his back gave out 2 years ago. Our savings had maybe $12,000 in it. Harold, how did you? I borrowed from some bad people, Evie. Real bad people. And they want their money in a year, or they're going to take the house. Our house. The house we raised our kids in. The house where we planned to spend our golden years with our grandbabies visiting. I felt like I'd been punched. This house was all we had. We'd paid off the mortgage 10 years ago, and it was supposed to be our security. The one thing nobody could take from us. What do we do? I asked. Because that's what you do when you've been married for over 4 decades. You say we. You face it together. We need to make money fast, Harold said. I already picked up some work doing handyman jobs on the side, but it ain't enough. If we both hustle for the next year, we can pay it off and save our home, save our marriage, save everything we built together. I looked at this man I'd loved since I was 24 years old. The man who'd given me 3 children, Brianna, Kendall, and Xavier. The man who'd held my hand through my mother's funeral and my father's stroke. The man who'd danced with me in the living room on our anniversary every single year, even when we couldn't afford to go out. Okay, I said, we'll do it together. Tell me what you need me to do. That's how I ended up working 4 jobs at 67 years old. I started with the office cleaning job, waking up at 5 a.m. to catch the bus downtown. My supervisor, a young woman named Jasmine, who couldn't have been more than 30, kept asking me if I was sure I could handle it. Ma'am, no disrespect, but this is a lot of physical work. You sure you don't want something easier? Baby, I'm sure, I told her. I need this job. Then came the hospital cafeteria. I'd worked in food service before, so that part wasn't too hard, except for being on my feet for 4 hours straight. But the hospital was warm and clean, and the other workers were nice. There was this woman named Geneva who reminded me of my sister. Same round face, same quick laugh. Girl, you working another job after this? Geneva asked me on my first day. 2 more, I admitted. Her eyes went wide. 2 more? Baby, you trying to kill yourself? Just trying to save my home, I said, and she squeezed my hand like she understood. The call center job was the worst for my spirit. Sitting in a cubicle with a headset, getting yelled at by angry customers for 4 hours straight. My back would cramp up from sitting after being on my feet all day, but it paid $12 an hour and I needed every penny. Then the diner. Rosie's Diner was open 24 hours, and they needed a night waitress. The manager, a white man named Donnie, looked at me skeptically. You sure you can handle the night shift? It gets rough in here after midnight. Lots of drunk folks coming in. I can handle it, I said. Because I had to, and I did handle it. For 8 months, I worked 75 to 80 hours a week. I lost 23 pounds because I barely had time to eat. My feet developed calluses on top of calluses. My hands stayed dry and cracked no matter how much lotion I used. My eyes had permanent dark circles underneath them. But I kept going because Harold said we were in this together. He'd show me the handyman jobs he was picking up, fixing somebody's fence, painting a garage, laying some tile. He'd come home tired and tell me about his day, and I'd tell him about mine. We'd sit on the couch for maybe 20 minutes before I had to get ready for my next shift, and he'd rub my feet while we watched the news. We're going to make it, Evie, he'd say. Just a few more months, and we'll be free. And then we're going to sleep for a week straight. I believed him. God help me, I believed every single word. I gave him my paychecks. All of them. He said he was handling the debt payments, dealing with the bad people, making sure we stayed on track. I trusted him because that's what you do when you've been married for 43 years. But I was so tired. Lord, I was tired in my bones, tired in my soul. I started falling asleep on the bus between jobs. Geneva caught me nodding off at the hospital one day and nearly dropped her tray. Evelyn, when's the last time you slept through the night? I had to think about it. I don't remember, I finally said. That ain't healthy. You need to take care of yourself. I will, I promised. Soon as we get this debt paid off, I'm sleeping for a month. Meanwhile, Harold seemed fine. Better than fine, actually. He'd started dressing nicer. New shoes, new cologne. His hair was cut fresh every week instead of every month like it used to be. When I mentioned it, he said he needed to look professional for the handyman jobs. Can't show up to people's houses looking rough, he explained. Gotta present yourself right. Made sense to me. Everything made sense to me because I was too exhausted to question anything. I was running on fumes and faith, believing we were building towards something better. Our kids would call sometimes, but I didn't tell them what was happening. Brianna lived in Atlanta with her husband and 2 kids. Kendall was out in Phoenix doing something with computers. Xavier was right here in town, but he had his own family to worry about. They didn't need to know their parents were struggling. I'd always been the strong one, the one who held everything together. I wasn't about to burden my children now. The only person who knew something was wrong was my best friend Rita. We'd been friends since our kids were in elementary school together, back when we were young mothers trying to figure out life. Rita came by the house one Sunday after church, the one day a week I had off from all my jobs, and nearly cried when she saw me. "Evelyn Marie Richardson, you look like death warmed over. What is going on?" I told her everything. The debt, the jobs, the plan to save our house. She listened with her arms crossed, that look on her face that meant she wasn't buying it. "And Harold's doing what exactly?" she asked. "Handyman work, whenever he can get jobs?" "Mm-hmm. And you've seen proof of this income? Seen the payments being made on this debt?" I bristled a little. "He's my husband, Rita. I trust him." "Trust is good, but verification is better. Something don't smell right about this, Evie. Why you working yourself to death while he's just doing handyman work whenever he can?" "It's not like that. He's working too. We're in this together." Rita looked at me for a long moment, then sighed. "Okay, baby. But promise me something. Promise me you'll take care of yourself. And promise me if something feels wrong, you'll open your eyes and really look at what's happening." "I promise," I said. But I didn't really understand what she meant. Not then. So I kept working. Kept pushing through the exhaustion and pain, kept believing that Harold and I were a team, fighting together to save everything we'd built. Until that night. That awful, beautiful, terrible night when I came home at 2 a.m. to make my husband a plate of food, and overheard him bragging to his mistress about how well-trained his personal slave was. I stood in that kitchen, listening to him laugh about my suffering, and something inside me went cold. Ice cold. The kind of cold that helps you think clearly for the first time in months. I turned off the stove, put the food back in the refrigerator, took off my shoes so I could move quietly, and I walked to our bedroom door, which was cracked open just enough for me to see inside. Harold was lying on our bed, the bed I'd made that morning before my first shift. He was wearing silk pajamas I'd never seen before. The TV was on, some basketball game, but he wasn't watching it. He was on his phone, FaceTiming someone, and when I angled myself just right, I could see her on the screen. She was young, couldn't have been more than 40, light-skinned with long weave and false eyelashes, wearing a silk robe that matched Harold's pajamas. My husband had matching pajamas with another woman. "Baby, I gotta go," Harold said to her, his voice all sweet and gentle. "My roommate's going to be home soon." Roommate. He called me his roommate. "When you coming back to see me?" the woman asked, pouting like a child. "This weekend. I told her I got a big handyman job out of town. 3 days of work. She don't suspect nothing." They blew kisses at each other. Actual kisses through the phone screen. Then Harold hung up, stretched like he didn't have a care in the world, and rolled over to go to sleep. I stood there in the hallway of my own house, staring at the back of my husband's head. and felt something I hadn't felt in 43 years of marriage. I felt free, because now I knew the truth, and the truth, as painful as it was, meant I could finally stop being a fool. I walked quietly to the guest bedroom, the room we'd set up for when the grandbabies visited, and locked the door. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and did something I hadn't had the energy to do in months. I made a plan. Harold thought I was too tired, too broken, too devoted to ever question him. He thought 43 years of marriage meant he owned me. He thought he could work me to death while he lived like a king with some woman young enough to be his daughter. He thought wrong. I pulled out my phone and started taking notes. Every job I worked, every dollar I'd earned, every lie he'd told. My hands were shaking, but my mind was clear for the first time since this nightmare started. By the time the sun came up, I had the beginning of a plan. It wasn't complete yet, but it was a start. And for the first time in 8 months, when my alarm went off at 5 a.m. to get ready for the cleaning job, I didn't feel tired. I felt dangerous. But I needed help. I needed proof. I needed to be smart about this, because if Harold found out I knew, there was no telling what he might do. So I got up, got dressed, and went to my first job like nothing had changed. And when I walked past our bedroom, Harold was still snoring in those silk pajamas his mistress probably bought him with my money. "Sleep good, honey," I whispered at the closed door, Kai. "Because your personal slave is about to become your worst nightmare." The hardest part about pretending everything was normal was looking Harold in the face and smiling. That first morning after I discovered the truth, I made him breakfast like I always did before heading to my cleaning job. Scrambled eggs, turkey bacon, toast. He came shuffling into the kitchen in those silk pajamas, yawning like he'd had a hard night's sleep. "Morning, baby," he said, kissing my cheek. His lips felt like poison on my skin. "Morning," I said, and somehow my voice came out steady. "How'd you sleep?" "Like a rock. You know, I think all this handyman work is finally catching up with me. I'm exhausted." I wanted to throw the hot pan of eggs right in his lying face. Instead, I smiled and set his plate down in front of him. "Well, you just rest up today. I gotta get to work." "4 jobs," Harold said, shaking his head like he felt sorry for me. "Baby, you're working so hard. But it's going to pay off. I promise you that. We're almost there." "How much more do we need to pay off?" I asked casually, buttering my own toast. Harold didn't even blink. "About 40,000 left. We're making real progress, Evie. Real progress." 40,000. I'd been working 80-hour weeks for 8 months, and he was telling me we still had 40,000 to go? I'd given him over $60,000. Where had all that money gone? I knew where. Into his mistress's pocket. Into fancy hotels and silk pajamas, and whatever else he was spending it on while I worked myself to death. "That's good," I said, taking a bite of toast I could barely taste. "Real good." "We'll get there." "That's my girl," Harold said, patting my hand. "My strong, beautiful wife. Don't know what I'd do without you." I looked at this man who'd shared my bed for 43 years. This man who'd held our babies when they were born. This man who'd stood beside me at my parents' funerals and promised to love me until death do us part. And I felt absolutely nothing but cold, calculated rage. "I gotta get going," I said, standing up. "Don't want to be late." I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, but before I left, I turned back. Harold was already on his phone, probably texting that woman. He didn't even look up to say goodbye. Good. Let him think I was the same tired, devoted fool I'd been yesterday. Let him think he was safe. My first stop wasn't the cleaning job, though. I'd called in sick, first time in 8 months. Instead, I went straight to Rita's house. She answered the door in her bathrobe, eyes wide with surprise. "Evelyn? Girl, what are you doing here? Ain't you supposed to be at work?" "I need your help," I said, and my voice cracked a little. "Rita, you were right. You were right about everything." She pulled me inside so fast I nearly tripped. Within 5 minutes, I'd told her everything about the phone call, the mistress, the silk pajamas, the lies about the debt payments, all of it. Rita sat there listening, her face getting darker and darker with anger. When I finished, she stood up and started pacing her living room like a caged lion. That dirty, low-down, sneaky, trifling son of a... She stopped herself, took a deep breath, and looked at me. Okay, we're going to fix this. But we got to be smart, Evie. Real smart. Because men like Harold don't go down easy. I know. That's why I need help. I can't do this alone. Rita nodded, already thinking. First thing we need is proof. Real proof. Not just what you heard, but evidence. Bank statements, phone records, something that shows where all that money really went. How do I get that without him knowing? You leave that to me. My nephew Darnell works at the bank. And my cousin Patricia, she's a private investigator. We're going to get you everything you need. I felt tears starting to come, but they weren't sad tears. They were relief tears. For the first time in 8 months, I wasn't alone in this. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me yet, Rita said, squeezing my hand. We got work to do, but first, you need to go see a lawyer. A good one. My friend Vanessa Harper, she handles divorces, and she don't play. She'll tell you exactly what you need to do to protect yourself. Lawyer, divorce. The words felt heavy and final, but also... right. This marriage had been dead for a while. I just hadn't known it was me digging the grave. Rita made the call right then and there. Vanessa could see me that afternoon at 2 o'clock, between my hospital shift and my call center shift. I'd have to skip lunch, but that was nothing new. The rest of that day felt like I was moving through a dream. I went to the hospital cafeteria and served food with Geneva, who kept asking if I was okay. You seem different today, she said. Like, lighter somehow. Just had some good news, I told her, which wasn't exactly a lie. Finding out your husband is trash is bad news, but knowing you're going to do something about it, that's good news. At 2 o'clock sharp, I walked into Vanessa Harper's office. She was a black woman in her 50s, wearing a sharp navy suit and glasses that made her look like she could see right through your soul. Mrs. Richardson, she said, shaking my hand. Rita told me a little bit about your situation, but I need you to tell me everything. Don't leave out any details, no matter how small or embarrassing they seem. So I told her. All of it. And as I talked, she took notes, her face getting more and more serious. When I finished, she sat back in her chair and looked at me over those glasses. Mrs. Richardson, Evelyn, I'm going to be straight with you. What your husband did is called financial exploitation and emotional abuse. He deliberately deceived you, used your trust against you, and profited from your labor while living a double life. In our state, that's going to work very much in your favor when we file for divorce. Divorce. There was that word again. But here's what we need to do right now, today, before anything else, Vanessa continued. We need to separate your finances immediately. Do you have any accounts in just your name? I shook my head. Everything's joint. Our checking, our savings, everything. Then we're opening you a new account today, and starting immediately, your paychecks go into that account. Not one more penny goes to him. But what if he notices? What if he asks about the money? Vanessa's smile was sharp as a knife. Let him ask. Let him get angry. Let him show his true colors. Because everything he does from this point forward, we're going to document. Every threat, every lie, every manipulation. It's all going to help your case. She pulled out some papers. I'm also going to need you to write down everything you remember about the past 8 months. Every conversation about the debt. Every promise he made. Every time he told you how the money was being used. Can you do that? Yes, I said, and I meant it. Good. Now, do you feel safe at home? Is there any chance he might become violent when he realizes you know? I thought about it. Harold had never hit me in 43 years, but I'd never challenged him before either. I'd always been the obedient wife, the supportive partner, the woman who did what she was told. "I don't know," I admitted. "Then we prepare for the worst and hope for the best. I want you to pack a bag and keep it hidden somewhere safe. Important documents, medications, some clothes. Just in case you need to leave quickly. Can you do that?" I nodded, feeling a chill run down my spine. This was really happening. I was really preparing to leave my husband after 43 years of marriage. "One more thing," Vanessa said. "Rita mentioned her cousin's a private investigator. I want you to hire her. We need proof of this affair, proof of where the money's going, photos, records, everything. It'll cost money, but it's worth it." "How much?" "Probably around $2,000 for a full investigation." $2,000. That was half a month of my earnings from all 4 jobs, but it was worth it. It was worth every penny to get my life back. "I'll do it," I said. Vanessa smiled, and this time it was warm. "You're stronger than you think, Evelyn. Most women in your situation would stay. They'd make excuses, convince themselves it wasn't that bad, but you're fighting back. That takes courage." I left her office feeling something I hadn't felt in years. I felt powerful. Over the next 3 weeks, I became a spy in my own home. Patricia, Rita's cousin, taught me how to screenshot Harold's phone records when he left it lying around, how to check the browser history on our computer, how to follow the paper trail. And Lord, the things I found. Hotel receipts, dozens of them. Some places I'd heard of, fancy hotels in Clayton and Madison. Some I hadn't. All charged to our joint credit card, the one he said he was using for materials for his handyman jobs. Venmo payments to someone named Candy J. Hundreds of dollars at a time, sometimes twice a week. The messages attached made me sick to my stomach. "For that dress I promised you. Spending money for my queen. Can't wait to see you in this." Restaurant receipts from places I'd never been to. Steakhouses, wine bars. That fancy Italian place downtown that costs $200 a person. Meanwhile, I was eating vending machine sandwiches between shifts. But the worst part? The handyman jobs weren't real. Patricia followed him for a week, and you know what he did? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He'd leave the house in the morning like he was going to work, drive to a coffee shop, sit there for a few hours reading the paper, then go to the gym. The gym! While I was scrubbing toilets and getting yelled at by angry customers, my husband was on the treadmill. Some days he'd go straight to Candy's apartment, a little place on the east side in a building called Azure View. Patricia got pictures. Harold walking in with bags of groceries. Harold walking in with flowers. Harold walking in with shopping bags from expensive stores. My money. He was courting this woman with my money, with my sweat, with my blood and tears and sleepless nights. Patricia put it all in a folder, a thick folder full of evidence, photos, receipts, bank statements, everything. She presented it to me on a Tuesday evening, right after my call center shift. "This is airtight," she said. "Your lawyer's going to have a field day with this. That man's been stealing from you, plain and simple." I looked through the folder, seeing my marriage laid out in black and white. 43 years reduced to a pile of lies and betrayals. "Thank you," I told Patricia, and I meant it with my whole heart. "You going to be okay?" she asked, concern in her eyes. "I'm going to be better than okay," I said. "I'm going to be free." That night, I had a meeting with Vanessa. She looked through the evidence with the focused intensity of a hawk spotting prey. "This is excellent work," she said. "With this, we can prove not only adultery, but financial fraud. He's been using joint marital funds to support another relationship. That's going to make the judge very unhappy." "What happens next?" I asked. "Next, we file for divorce. But before we do that, I want to make sure you're completely protected. Have you moved all your money to your personal account?" "Every penny from the past 3 weeks." "Good. And he hasn't noticed?" "He noticed," I said. and I couldn't help but smile a little. He's been asking where the money is. I told him my job's changed their pay schedule. He believed me. Perfect. Keep playing along until we're ready to strike. Now, have you thought about what you want from this divorce? I want the house, I said immediately. That house is mine. I've cleaned every inch of it for 43 years. I raised my children there. My grandbabies visit there. That house is mine. We'll fight for it. What else? I want him to pay me back. Every dollar I earned these past 8 months, he stole from me, and I want it back. Vanessa nodded, writing notes. We'll ask for restitution. We'll also ask for alimony, since you sacrificed your retirement to work 4 jobs based on his lies. Anything else? I thought about it. I want him to know what he lost. I want him to realize that I wasn't his slave. I was his partner. And he threw that away for some woman named Candy. We can't put that in the legal papers, Vanessa said gently. But trust me, by the time we're done, he'll know. We set a date. Friday, exactly 1 month from the day I'd overheard that phone call. On that Friday, Harold would be served with divorce papers at home, and I would already be moved out, staying with Rita until I figured out my next steps. I had 4 weeks to prepare. 4 weeks to secretly pack my important belongings. 4 weeks to keep pretending I was the same tired, devoted wife he thought he'd broken. But something happened that I didn't expect. My body, which had been running on fumes for 8 months, started giving out. The stress of maintaining the lie, combined with still working 4 jobs, was too much. One night at the diner during the late shift, I felt dizzy. The room started spinning, and Geneva's face swam in and out of focus. Evelyn? Evelyn, you okay? I tried to answer, but my legs gave out. The last thing I remember was the floor rushing up to meet me and the sound of someone screaming for help. I woke up in the hospital, not as a cafeteria worker, but as a patient. The bright lights hurt my eyes, and there was an IV in my arm. A young doctor with kind eyes was standing over me. Mrs. Richardson, you're awake. Good. You gave us quite a scare. What happened? My voice came out scratchy. You collapsed from exhaustion and dehydration. Your blood pressure was dangerously low, and your body was essentially shutting down. When's the last time you had a full night's sleep? I tried to think. I don't know. Months, maybe? The doctor's face got serious. Mrs. Richardson, I need you to understand something. You can't keep going like this. Your body is sending you a message. If you don't listen, the next time you collapse, you might not wake up. Fear gripped my heart. I couldn't die. Not now. Not when I was so close to freedom. I understand, I whispered. Do you? Because according to your medical history, you're working 4 jobs at age 67. That's not sustainable. You're literally working yourself to death. Before I could respond, the door burst open and Harold rushed in. He looked genuinely scared, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw a flash of the man I'd married all those years ago. Evie, baby, are you okay? They called me and said you collapsed. I got here as fast as I could. He took my hand, and I had to fight not to pull away. The doctor looked between us, then quietly excused himself. What happened? Harold asked. Were you feeling sick? Why didn't you tell me something was wrong? I looked at my husband. Really looked at him. And I saw it clearly now. The fake concern in his eyes. The performance he was putting on. He wasn't worried about me. He was worried about his money source drying up. I'm just tired, I said. Working too much. Then you need to quit some of these jobs. We can figure something else out. Quit? But what about the debt? What about saving the house? Harold's face flickered, just for a second, with something that looked like annoyance. But he caught himself quick. The house ain't worth you dying over, baby. We'll figure it out. Liar. Such a liar. If I quit, He'd lose his funding for Candy and her fancy lifestyle. He didn't care about my health. He just needed to make sure his cash cow kept producing. Maybe you're right, I said weakly. Maybe I should cut back. Relief flooded his face. Just 1 or 2 jobs. That's all I'm saying. We'll make it work. The doctor came back in with discharge papers. I had to stay overnight for observation, but I could go home in the morning if my vitals stayed stable. After Harold left, he said he had to go take care of something at home. Rita snuck in. She must have heard about my collapse from Geneva, who had her number in case of emergencies. "Girl, you scared me half to death," Rita said, hugging me carefully around the IV. "What did the doctor say?" "That I'm working myself to death," which I already knew. "Then you got to stop, Evie. At least some of these jobs. Your health is more important than anything else." "I know, and I will. As soon as I get away from Harold, I'm done. I'm retiring for real this time. But I need to make it through these next few weeks." Rita looked worried. "What did Harold say when he was here?" "He said I should quit some jobs, but only because he's scared I'll stop making money for him." "That man is pure evil," Rita muttered. Pure, concentrated evil. A nurse came in to check my vitals, and Rita stepped out to give us privacy. But when the nurse left, Rita came back with a serious look on her face. "I got news," she said. "Patricia followed Harold after he left here. Guess where he went?" My stomach dropped. "To Candy's." "Straight there. Didn't even go home first. She got pictures of him knocking on her door, her answering in a negligee. He went in and didn't come back out for 3 hours." I closed my eyes. His wife was in the hospital, and he went straight to his mistress. It shouldn't have hurt anymore. I'd already seen all the evidence. But somehow, it still did. Not because I loved him, but because it confirmed just how little I'd ever meant to him. "I'm done," I said, opening my eyes. "I'm done playing his game. Call Vanessa. Move up the timeline. I want him served as soon as I'm out of this hospital." "You sure?" Rita asked. "We got everything in place, but—" "I'm sure. I was going to wait another 3 weeks, but why? Why give him 3 more weeks to use me? 3 more weeks to laugh at his personal slave? No, we end this now." Rita smiled, fierce and proud. "That's the Evelyn I know. I'll make the call." She stepped out to phone Vanessa, and I lay there in that hospital bed, feeling stronger than I had in months. Yes, my body was exhausted, but my spirit was on fire. I fell asleep thinking about Friday. Just 3 more days. 3 more days of pretending. Then Harold would get served with divorce papers, and his whole world would come crashing down. I couldn't wait. But I should have known better. I should have known that when you're dealing with a snake like Harold, nothing ever goes according to plan. Because 2 nights later, on Wednesday evening, everything went straight to hell. I came home from my hospital shift, my first day back at work after collapsing, to find Harold sitting at the kitchen table with our son Xavier. And from the look on both their faces, I knew Harold had somehow figured out what I was planning. My heart stopped when I saw them sitting there. Harold with his arms crossed, looking smug. Xavier with his face all twisted up in confusion and disappointment. And on the table between them, my folder. The one Patricia had given me with all the evidence. I'd hidden it in the guest bedroom closet, tucked inside an old hat box where I kept my Sunday church hats. Somehow Harold had found it. "Mama," Xavier said, standing up. "What is all this?" My mind raced. "Stay calm," I told myself. "You've been pretending for weeks. You can do this." "What are you talking about, baby?" Harold slammed his hand on the table, making me jump. "Don't play stupid, Evelyn. Bank statements, photos, private investigator reports. You been spying on me, your own husband?" I looked at my son, my youngest child, the baby I'd nursed and raised and loved with everything in me. Xavier was 39 years old now, with 2 kids of his own. He looked just like Harold did at that age, Same broad shoulders, same deep-set eyes. "Xavier, why don't you go on home to Shanice and the kids?" I said quietly. "This is between me and your father." "No, Mama. Dad called me over here saying you were acting crazy, talking about divorce and lawyers and—" He picked up one of the photos from the folder. Harold walking into Candy's apartment building. "What is this? What's going on?" Harold jumped in before I could answer. "Your mama's having some kind of breakdown, working too hard, not sleeping enough. She's seeing things that ain't there, making up stories." "I'm not making up anything," I said, my voice steady and cold. "Everything in that folder is real. Every photo, every receipt, every bank statement." "Your father's been having an affair while I worked 4 jobs to pay off debts that don't exist." Xavier's face went pale. "What?" "She's lying," Harold said quickly. "Xavier, your mama collapsed at work 2 days ago. The stress done got to her brain. She ain't thinking straight." "I'm thinking perfectly straight," I said, walking into the kitchen and pulling out a chair. My legs were shaking, but I sat down with as much dignity as I could manage. "Xavier, baby, I'm going to tell you the truth, and then you can decide who's lying." For the next 20 minutes, I laid it all out. The fake gambling debt, the 4 jobs, the 8 months of working myself to death. And finally, the night I overheard Harold on the phone, calling me his personal slave while bragging to his mistress about how easy I was to fool. Xavier listened to everything, his face getting darker and darker. When I finished, he turned to his father. "Dad, that true?" "Of course not. Son, you know your mama. She been under a lot of stress. She's confused." "Don't lie to him," I said sharply. "Xavier deserves the truth. We all deserve the truth." "Fine," Harold said, and his whole face changed. The fake concern disappeared, replaced by cold anger. "You want the truth? Yeah, I got someone else. So what? You think I wanted to spend my retirement years with a woman who nags me about every little thing? Who let herself go, got old, stopped taking care of herself?" Xavier's mouth fell open. "Dad? Nah, let me finish. Your mama been boring me for years. 20 years, maybe more. We stayed together for you kids, but you all grown now. And yeah, I told her we had debts, so she'd get off my back about money. Man's got a right to enjoy his retirement. I found someone who appreciates me, someone young and beautiful who don't constantly complain." The kitchen went completely silent. I sat there looking at this man, hearing him finally tell the truth after 43 years of marriage, and I felt nothing. No pain, no heartbreak, just cold satisfaction that his mask had finally slipped. Xavier stood up slowly, his hands clenched into fists. "Mama worked 4 jobs. 4 jobs, Dad. She almost killed herself working 80 hours a week. For debts that didn't exist? So you could spend her money on some other woman? Watch your mouth, boy. This is between me and your mama. I'm not a boy. I'm a man with kids of my own, and I would never, never do something like this to Shanice." "What kind of man are you?" "The kind that's tired of being disrespected in his own house." "You want to talk about disrespect?" I said quietly, and both of them turned to look at me. "You used me, Harold. You worked me like a slave while you lived like a king. You stole from me. You lied to our son, our friends, our church. You made me think we were partners when really I was just your ATM machine." "You owed me!" Harold shouted, standing up so fast his chair fell over. "You think I wanted to be married to you all these years? I stayed. I provided. I gave you a house and kids and a life. The least you could do is help me enjoy my final years the way I want to enjoy them." Xavier moved between us, protective. "Dad, you need to leave. Right now." "This is my house." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone and reading from a text message. "According to the pre-divorce injunction my lawyer filed this morning, you have to vacate the premises immediately. The police are on their way to make sure you do." Harold's face went from red to purple. "You can't kick me out of my own house." "It's not your house. It's our house, and since you've been using marital funds to commit fraud and support an affair, the judge agreed that I should have sole occupancy until the divorce is finalized. You have 30 minutes to pack a bag and leave." I'd timed it perfectly. Even as I said the words, I heard sirens in the distance. Vanessa had coordinated everything. The moment Harold found that folder, which I'd known he would eventually, we were ready to execute the backup plan. 2 police officers arrived within 5 minutes. They were polite but firm. Harold had to leave. He could take personal items, clothes, toiletries, his phone, but nothing else. No joint credit cards, no checkbook, nothing. I watched my husband of 43 years pack a suitcase, cursing and muttering under his breath. Xavier stood with the police officers, making sure Harold didn't try to take anything that wasn't his. And I sat at that kitchen table feeling like the weight of the world had just lifted off my shoulders. "This ain't over, Evelyn," Harold said as he dragged his suitcase to the door. "You're going to regret this. You're going to regret throwing away 43 years. "The only thing I regret," I said calmly, "is not finding out who you really were 43 years ago. Would have saved me a lot of trouble." He slammed the door so hard the pictures on the wall shook. The police officers followed him out to make sure he actually left, and then it was just me and Xavier in the sudden silence. My son turned to me with tears in his eyes. "Mama, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I would never have, if I'd known what he was doing." "I know, baby. I know." He hugged me tight, and I let myself cry for the first time since this nightmare started. Not sad tears, relief tears, freedom tears. "What do you need, Mama? What can I do?" "Just be here," I said. "Just believe me." "I do believe you. And I'm going to tell Brianna and Kendall everything. They need to know what kind of man Dad really is." Over the next few weeks, everything happened fast. Vanessa filed for divorce, and the evidence we'd gathered made the case open and shut. Harold tried to fight it at first. He hired a lawyer, though I don't know how he paid for it, since I'd cut off his access to our money and Candy apparently wasn't as generous as I'd been. His lawyer tried to argue that I'd abandoned the marriage by kicking Harold out. Vanessa destroyed that argument in about 30 seconds, presenting all the evidence of Harold's affair and financial fraud. Then Harold tried a different approach. He claimed he was entitled to half of everything because we'd been married for over 40 years. That's when Vanessa revealed her ace in the hole. "Your Honor," she said during the hearing, standing up in her sharp black suit, "we'd like to present evidence that Mr. Richardson deliberately and systematically defrauded his wife over an 8-month period. He fabricated debt, exploited her labor, and misappropriated over $60,000 of her earnings to fund an extramarital affair. Under state law, this constitutes financial abuse and entitles Mrs. Richardson to restitution, the house, and compensatory damages." The judge, an older black woman named Judge Carolyn Waters, looked at Harold over her glasses with the kind of expression that could freeze hell over. "Mr. Richardson, is it true you told your wife you had gambling debts totaling $85,000? Harold's lawyer whispered something to him. "Yes, Your Honor, but—" "And these debts did not actually exist?" "Well, not exactly, but—" "And you used money your wife earned working 4 jobs, at age 67, to support another relationship?" Harold didn't answer. He just stared at the floor. "I've seen a lot of things in this courtroom," Judge Waters said, "but this is one of the most callous acts of exploitation I've encountered. Mrs. Richardson, I'm granting you full ownership of the marital home, all marital assets, and I'm ordering Mr. Richardson to repay every dollar you earned during those 8 months. $63,412 according to your pay stubs. He has 6 months to make full restitution, or I'll hold him in contempt." I felt Rita squeeze my hand from where she sat beside me in the courtroom. On my other side, Xavier sat with his arms around me. Behind us, Geneva from the hospital had come to show support. Even Jasmine from my cleaning job was there, sitting with some of the other women I'd worked with. Harold's face went gray. "Your Honor, I don't have that kind of money. Then I suggest you get 4 jobs, Judge Waters said coldly. Same as your wife did. Court adjourned. The gavel came down, and it was over. Outside the courthouse, I was surrounded by people who loved me. Rita, Xavier, Geneva, Jasmine, Patricia, and even Vanessa, who wasn't supposed to show emotion, but was grinning like she'd just won the lottery. We did it, Rita said, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. Girl, we actually did it. No, I said, looking at all these beautiful faces around me. We all did it. I couldn't have done this alone. My phone rang. It was Brianna, calling from Atlanta. I'd kept her and Kendall updated throughout the whole process. Mama, Xavier just texted me. You won everything. I did, baby. I'm free. I'm so proud of you, Mama. So proud. And I'm coming home next weekend with the kids. We're going to have a celebration dinner. A freedom dinner. A freedom dinner. I liked the sound of that. Over the next few months, my life transformed in ways I never expected. First, I quit all 4 jobs. Every single one. On my last day at each place, my coworkers threw me little parties. Geneva gave me a charm bracelet with 4 charms on it, 1 for each job I'd worked, with an inscription that said, Strength. So you never forget how strong you are, she said. I moved back into my house now, and spent the first week just sleeping. Sleeping like I hadn't slept in years. No alarms, no shifts, no exhaustion so deep it hurt my bones. Just sleep. When I finally woke up fully rested for the first time in 8 months, I walked through my house and saw it with new eyes. This was mine, all mine, and I was going to fill it with love and laughter and grandchildren, not lies and betrayal. Xavier and his family came over every Sunday after church. Brianna flew in once a month with her kids. Even Kendall, all the way in Phoenix, started calling more often. My children, who I'd protected from the truth for so long, now knew everything. And they loved me even more for my strength. The church found out what happened, of course. Pastor Williams called me into his office one day, looking concerned. Sister Evelyn, I heard about what you've been going through. Why didn't you come to us for help? I was ashamed, I admitted. Didn't want people to know my marriage was falling apart. Sister, there's no shame in being betrayed. The shame is on the betrayer. And I want you to know, this church family is here for you, whatever you need. What I needed, it turned out, was community. The ladies' auxiliary started inviting me to events. The choir asked me to rejoin. I'd had to quit when I was working 4 jobs because I never had time to rehearse. Women from church would show up at my house with food, with stories, with laughter. I wasn't alone anymore. As for Harold, last I heard, he was living in a studio apartment on the east side, working at a hardware store to try to pay back the restitution the judge ordered. Candy had left him the minute his money dried up. Turned out she wasn't interested in a broke 68-year-old man with nothing to offer. I didn't feel bad for him, not even a little bit. One Saturday morning, about 4 months after the divorce was finalized, I was sitting on my front porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sunrise. Rita pulled up in her car and came walking up the driveway with a big smile on her face. "Girl, you got to see this," she said, handing me her phone. It was a Facebook post from Harold, a long, rambling post about how divorce had ruined his life, how his wife had turned his children against him, how the court system was biased against men. It was pathetic and desperate and full of lies. "You see the comments?" Rita asked. I scrolled down. Comment after comment from people we knew, church members, neighbors, people from our community, all calling Harold out. "We know what you did, Harold. Sister Evelyn told us the truth. You should be ashamed. Real men don't exploit their wives. You're getting exactly what you deserve." I handed the phone back to Rita. "He can post whatever he wants. The truth is out there. and the truth set me free." "Amen to that," Rita said, sitting down beside me. "So what are you going to do now? You got all this free time, all this freedom. What does Evelyn Richardson want to do with the rest of her life?" I thought about it. I was 67 years old. I'd spent 43 years being a wife, 30 years being a secretary, and 8 months being a slave. What did I want to be now? "I want to help other women," I said slowly. "Women who are being exploited and don't even know it. Women who are trapped in bad marriages. Women who think they're too old or too tired or too broken to start over." Rita's smile got even bigger. "Sister, I think that's a beautiful calling." So that's what I did. I started volunteering with a women's advocacy group, sharing my story, helping women recognize the signs of financial abuse, connecting them with lawyers and resources, teaching them that it's never too late to choose yourself. One woman I helped was named Dorothy. She was 71 years old, and her husband had been controlling all their money for 50 years. She thought that was just how marriage worked. But after hearing my story at a church women's meeting, she came up to me with tears in her eyes. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know it could be different." "It can be," I told her, "and it should be. You deserve better." I helped Dorothy open her own bank account, helped her meet with a lawyer, helped her file for divorce. And 6 months later, at age 71, Dorothy started her new life as a free woman. "Thank you," she said, hugging me at the courthouse after her divorce was finalized. "Thank you for showing me it's never too late." "No, baby," I said. "Thank you for being brave enough to choose yourself." That became my motto. Choose yourself. It's never too late to choose yourself. On my 68th birthday, my whole family came over for dinner. All 3 of my kids, all 5 of my grandchildren, Rita and her family, Geneva, Patricia, Vanessa, and about 20 people from church. My house was full of love and laughter and the smell of good food. As I looked around at all these beautiful faces, I thought about Harold, about how he'd called me his personal slave, about how he'd thought I was too broken, too tired, too devoted to ever fight back. He'd underestimated me. They always do. They see an older woman, a tired woman, a devoted wife, and they think they can use her up and throw her away, ma'am. But we're stronger than they know. We're smarter than they think. And when we finally open our eyes and see the truth, we are unstoppable. "Grandma, are you crying?" my granddaughter Destiny asked, looking up at me with concern. "Happy tears, baby," I said, wiping my eyes. "Just happy tears." "Tell us the story again," she said. "The one about how you became a superhero." I laughed. My grandkids had started calling me a superhero after Xavier told them about how I'd worked 4 jobs and defeated the villain. They didn't know the full details, they were too young, but they knew their grandma had done something brave. "One day," I promised Destiny, "when you're older, I'll tell you the whole story. And I'll tell you so you know that women in our family, we don't let anyone make us small. We don't let anyone use us. And we always choose ourselves." "Even when it's hard?" she asked. "Especially when it's hard." That night, after everyone left and the house was quiet again, I sat in my living room with a cup of tea and thought about everything I'd been through. The pain, the exhaustion, the betrayal, the fight, the victory. Was it worth it? Absolutely. Would I do it again? In a heartbeat. Because I learned something important during those 8 months of hell and the months of fighting that followed. I learned that I was stronger than I ever knew, that I had people who loved me, that it's never too late to start over, and that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the gateway to your best life. I'm 68 years old now. I sleep 8 hours every night. I volunteer with women who need help. I spend time with my grandchildren. I go to church on Sunday and laugh with my friends and live my life on my own terms. Harold thought he could break me. He thought 43 years of marriage meant he owned me. He thought he could work me to death, and I'd just accept it. He was wrong. And every morning when I wake up in my house, in my bed, living my life, I thank God that I overheard that phone call, that I learned the truth, that I found the strength to fight back, because I'm not his personal slave. I never was. I'm Evelyn Marie Richardson. I'm a mother, a grandmother, a friend, a survivor, and a woman who chose herself. And I'm free. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.